Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Raful. I am your host of At This Stage, presented by Camp Broadway. Along with our friends at Streamable Learning, I am live to you from my apartment in New York City to connect you with Broadway performers both on and off the stage. I'm so excited to bring them and connect them to you, our friends, our families, and our students all across the country and the world. Thank you for joining us today. As I said before, start thinking of those questions you have, and I will get to them as many of them as I promised I can, and you can put them in our question and answer function on your screen. I am so excited to introduce you to our guest today, Eric Paul Vitale. Hi, Eric.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Sorry, I'm getting a weird message, but I'm glad you can hear me and see me. This is wonderful.
Yes, I'm going to do a quick bio for those of you who aren't as familiar with Eric as I am. So Eric is a New York-based producer, director, and chief of staff. He produced for Emmy Award-winning comedian Jim Gaffigan, including Jim's 2009 Amazon special Quality Time. He also serves as the chief of staff and literary assistant on the creation of the 2019 New York Times bestseller, When Life Gives You Pears. And as associate director for Cirque du Soleil's Corteo, Eric was honored to tour with the original team and develop new content based on regional and cultural themes. Eric's directing credits also include the signature the signature project off-Broadway premiere of the Sycamore Street Kite Flying Club at Lincoln Center, Carolee Carmelo at the Metropolis, Annie, the national tour as assistant director, Charles Strauss at the Pheasantry in London, Cirque du Soleil's Corteo, and the Addams Family at Fordham University, and a couple others, which I'm going to go through here quickly. In September of 2020 this year, Eric will direct the groundbreaking restoration of the Tony Award-winning Best Musical Applause for the NYU Steinhardt School's vocal performance program in collaboration with the original composer, Charles Strauss. Okay, we have a lot to talk about. First of all, how are you? Where are you?
Where am I? I'm in my house in Brooklyn, New York. I am, it's an old house, and I just told you a little while ago, I'll tell everybody again, as I was working on a little work on my house yesterday, I discovered literally a secret door behind a wall, and it's that wall right there. Isn't that crazy?
Amazing. It's like the plot of a musical right there.
This is like the plot of a musical. And I'm very well, and I'm here with my wonderful spouse, Amber, who's downstairs working away, and I'm upstairs with you, which is great.
Amazing. Before we get into all the exciting stuff you're doing currently, let's go back to the beginning. What are your earliest memories of theater? How were you first introduced to theater?
Sure. I'm told that I went to see my first Broadway show was Peter Pan in 87, 88. I don't know who was playing Peter Pan at the time. But I'm told, but I don't remember. But I do remember in 1990 seeing the sit-down production of The Phantom of the Opera in LA when it left Broadway and did its first sit-down in LA. And I remember it being just incredible, just mystifying and beautiful. And that's my first memory of the theater.
Were your parents involved with theater of any kind, or they encouraged you to go see or start partaking in the arts?
My father was a lifelong fan of the theater. In fact, he still is a lifelong fan of the theater. I'm going to see him later on tonight as he's driving by my house to pick up a cake because it's my mother's birthday today. Happy birthday, Mom.
There you go.
And he did so much theater when he was a child in school, and he lived on Long Island, and he would mow lawns and for enough money to take a train in and get a ticket to a Broadway show. And he's, besides my little library of theater books, he's like my best theater book because he saw the original runs of everything you can imagine. Original Gypsy with Merman, original, I mean, original Sweeney, original, name them, anything
Everything.
between 1960 and 1980, and he saw the original run of it, so.
That's amazing. How did you start involving yourself in theater in high school and then on to college? What was your way into the theater world?
Sure. So I did all the shows in school, mostly musical, some plays in middle school and in high school. Actually, in high school, though, I started to really enjoy working behind the scenes much more than performing on stage. I still have a great time sitting down at my piano downstairs and singing show tunes. I mean, that's great. But even when I was in high school, found it so much more fun for me to be seeing the big picture and to be working on the making of how it all works instead of being inside of it, actually performing. So that's kind of where my love for producing and directing started. And it just happened. I wasn't asked to do something like that. I saw, oh wow, I really enjoy that a lot more. And so that's how I wound up there.
And then what did you study? What did you study in college?
Sure. So I went to Marymount Manhattan College and I got my BA in theater direction. So a specific degree in studying direction for the theater, which encompassed, a great deal of liberal arts education, and also a lot of specific work in understanding how technical theater and theater production works. Because as a director and as a producer, if you don't understand those things and have a working knowledge of, their functionality, it's hard for you to communicate with the team. I had a design meeting yesterday and I needed to call back knowledge that I learned from a lighting design class years and years ago, because it was important for me to know how to have that discussion with the lighting designer.
Before we get too far, I think most of us know what a director does, especially in theater, but can you give us just a couple of words about what a director does versus what a producer does?
Sure. I think both of those answers are really fungible or really changeable depending on who you are and what you do. I can say the answers for me are that a director is someone who takes a story, normally from a playwright, and is the chief interpreter of that story. So guides the shape of that story. And it is shaped by all the other people involved in the process, by the props master, by the spear carrier, by the tap dancer, by the orchestra, by everyone. So it's really I would say the best way for me to put it is the shaper of the story. And then I would say what a producer does is makes those elements possible by guiding a team. So they bring a team together and they provide that guidance so that the story can be shaped inside of it. Sometimes a director and a producer, talk about one of the greats who, not on that show, but on many other shows, Hal Prince, thought Phantom of the Opera, was a great director and producer, and sometimes he did both. And sometimes I will do that, but sometimes it becomes just too much work. There's only so much work that a single individual can do. So sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes a show can have a director who also happens to be the choreographer, and they can share that responsibility.
Who is in charge of the money that is needed for the production?
Well, I would say traditionally the producer, but a producer can seek out investors, and there's different kinds of producers. There's producers that provide investment directly. There are producers that are part of that investment structure. There are producers that reach out and bring other investors into the process. And then a general management firm will then work with those investors to create that financial structure, which then makes the making of a show possible.
Right. So there's all sorts of people before a show even opens on. I mean, there's just so many behind the scenes people. So let's get back to you. So what was your first professional gig?
My first professional gig was very strange. So I was in my last semester in college, undergraduate, and I was directing a final thesis piece, a play. If you're at all interested, Brecht's The Elephant Calf. Great fun, actually funny comedy.
Fun, yeah.
I was directing that and taking my last semester's worth of classes. And someone told me that a kind of famous artistic director needed help. And so his name, he's since deceased, was Ted Mann, Theodore Mann, proper, and he was the founder of the Circle and the Square Theater on Broadway. He started it off Broadway, I believe in 1956, if my memory serves me. And he brought some groundbreaking productions of Eugene O'Neill into the American zeitgeist, and really brought back O'Neill's brilliance to the American theater, and brought it to life with Jose Quintero and Paul Libin. And then they, in the 70s, got the opportunity to move uptown and build the Circle and Square Theater on Broadway, which is currently still there and waiting for the day that it gets to reopen, which will be very exciting. And so I went and I met Ted, and later that day I became his full-time assistant, and they let me take my classes, and some of my teachers let me take my classes at strange times and kind of do things a little differently, because I had a full-time job and a thesis play and the rest of my semester to finish in order to graduate. And so I graduated, and the next day I was there from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m., which is theater office hours. And I spent 3 years as the assistant to the artistic director of the Circle and the Square Theater.
That's amazing. What amazing experience, and straight out of college. And where did you go next from that? I mean, when did we talked a little bit before about your amazing experience with Annie, with specifically the show Annie.
Sure. I'll jump back a little bit just for a brief moment and say after that I went on tour, and I spent a year touring with Cirque du Soleil.
Okay.
As the associate artistic director for Corteo, which was really fun and really challenging, being in new different environments. I'm much more of a homebody than I am a touring person, but it was a really beautiful experience and really interesting to work in a different medium of theater, in the Cirque medium, which was beautiful and a lot of fun. And then after that, I'm trying to recall my resume sequentially, but I did eventually after that get the opportunity to work on the restored national tour of Annie. We set the tour after the Broadway production. Martin Charnin, the original lyricist and director, came back in, and he set the tour in 2014, and I was his assistant on that tour, and it was just a really exciting process to get to rebuild the show with Martin.
Where does one start in that kind of circumstance, where especially a show that's as well known as Annie? Is it stuff that was stuff brought back that they had always wanted to be seen, or even at that time, I mean, the show wasn't written in stone, there were still things they wanted to fix and change?
Sure. So it's kind of funny, when you're working with the original team, they're always open to they're very open-minded. There's a group of really open-minded people who 40 years, 50 years before created a show, and they're always going, does this still work? Does this make sense? I will never forget sitting next to Martin, who I dearly miss, in rehearsal, and he goes, how did the kid get off the stage in the laundry basket again? Wait a minute. How did she get off the stage in the laundry basket? And we had to walk through the whole laundry basket thing again with Mr. Bundles to remember. And I mean, he created it. And there was a funny moment, a little non sequitur, and I'll show you something, where Martin, we were in rehearsals in Utica, New York, of all places, at a theater. It was a great big old theater. And the Warbucks staff of the house had this beautiful wardrobe. I'm forgetting who designed the wardrobe for that production. And the wardrobe designer had made outerwear for the servants. Beautiful jackets, hats, gloves. I mean, gorgeous. But the problem is that we never see them leave the mansion. They never go anywhere. So Martin goes, wait a minute. What if instead of them staying, they all go to the movies with Annie and Warbucks and Grace? And so he got Tom Meehan on the phone and Charles Strauss on the phone. We're all on the phone together. They love the idea. Great idea. So he goes, we'll need a little extra verse of NYC, the big song, because we're going to bring them all along. So here is what Martin wrote that day. This is the original copy, and it's the alternate lyric to NYC, where will you read it to us? Sure. So it goes right
you don't have to sing it. It's okay.
It goes before the, I'll try to stop me. It goes before the skating section. And Martin actually charged me with coming up with iconic New York landmarks that the ensemble of staff from the Warbucks mansion could sing about. Beowulf Bort designed this beautiful black and white set full of all these amazing images of New York. And I gave him the list, and the next day he came back with this, and he says, sorry, I didn't use any of your list because I had a better idea, which was the ensemble singing about the relationship between Warbucks and the little girl, Annie, and how his heart was starting to change. So they all sing, whoever thought we'd ever see him behave so merrily, spring in his step, smile in his heart, gleam in his gaze. And then originally he put, it has to be because of her, that little girl's a sorcerer. And then at the very last minute, he said, wait, better idea. Because of her, we must confess that little girl's a sorceress. Because he thought the word sorceress was a really neat lyric, brilliant lyricist. And then magical change, long overdue, pray that it stays, and then they all do the skating scene together. So
amazing.
Isn't that fun?
Yes, that is so fun. That makes so much sense. How long were you involved with the show? Did you go on the road with it?
So that's an interesting question. When a national tour like that is set, it rehearses normally in New York. It can rehearse other places for a number of weeks. And then it will go to 1 or 2 or 3 different cities to tech and to preview before the tour launches. Like a Broadway show, except it's traveling from theater to theater instead of teching in one theater, previewing one theater, and opening in another theater. So it has that same trajectory. Mm-hmm. Then once the show opens, the assistant director, the director, everybody waves goodbye, and we leave the show in the hands of the capable production stage manager. Now, once in a while, the director will normally drop back in and visit, or if he can't, the assistant director. Martin had such a love for the redheaded girl with the big eyes, and so I actually never flew back to the tour, though I do keep in touch with many of the people who we set the tour with. But Martin always flew back if there was a change that was needed, or a new cast member that the stage manager needed assistance with helping to put in the show. So that's sort of how that works.
You might not know this answer. This is purely for me. Did it ever surprise Martin Charnin and Charles Strauss and Tom? Like, did it ever surprise them how much people connected with Annie? And that score specifically, I mean, every child knows that the sun will come out tomorrow.
it's interesting that you say that song. So one day, Martin and I were in a car together, I think in Utica or Detroit or something like that. And we're driving over to the theater. I'm driving, he's in the passenger seat. We're driving over to the theater. And I looked at him and I said, did you ever know that Tomorrow would be such a song? Did you feel it? And he said to me, absolutely not. I had no idea. He said, you know what song we did think, and they had prepared for many people to cover it, you know, make albums of it, do their own renditions of it, put it on television commercials, was You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile. They were convinced that if there was a song that would break out, that would be the song.
Interesting.
Which is my favorite song in the show, actually.
Sure. Yeah.
They had no idea that Tomorrow was going to be a hit song. And Charles always reminds me that it was written pretty late in the process to cover a scene change. So there you go.
You never know. So let's move to you as a director. When did that opportunity present itself? Was it a project that you had found interested, or were you asked to work on something?
Sure, I'll tell you, the first show I ever directed was in high school, and I was asked to direct a production of Gilbert and Sullivan's The Mikado, which is a heck of a job for a first-time director. But it was really fun, and I knew that I loved it right from that moment, figuring out how all the collaborators come together and shaping that process, which was fun. I would say my off-Broadway premiere, which I can speak to, which was in 2018 at the Sheen Center on Bleecker Street downtown, was a great experience. And that came to me surely because I met a painter, and he told me a story about a painting he was working on. And it was the most captivating 45-minute story I've ever heard. And I said to him, he's from Ireland, and he has this amazing cultural history. He's an older gentleman. And I said, Patrick, that was like the greatest play I've ever seen. And he said, what play? And I was like, the last 45 minutes. That was a great play. And he's like, it's not a play, it's just a painting. And I was like, no, it's definitely, there's a play here. And so that's how that kind of came to life too.
When you're directing a show, what is your process? How do you start? How do you see what you're gonna attack when you start?
Sure, always back to the shaping of the story. What is the story we're trying to tell here? With Patrick, I knew where we were going. We were going towards a very specific painting that he's working on. He's been working on it for 26 years. It's enormous. It's the size of a basketball court at Madison Square Garden. And it's, which Camp Broadway has been to many times. And so I needed to get to the heart of the story of why he's painting this massive painting. And so that it's right about shaping the story. I'm never concerned. I'm actually doing digital auditions right now for a project that we can talk about later, but I'm never concerned about who's going to play the part. Should they be a good dancer? Would they look good in a hat? Are they 7 feet tall? It's what is the story we're going to tell together is the most important thing.
Let's get to that project you're working on now. So September 2020, we look forward to the groundbreaking revitalization of Charles Strous's Applause. How did that project come to be?
Well,
and for those of us who don't know Applause, maybe a little bit of the story.
Sure. So, well, we'll make this a nice and short story. 70 years ago, Charles Strouse went to the movies. No, that's a long story. And he saw the movie All About Eve. And if you haven't seen the movie All About Eve, I would say that movie would be equivalent to like a PG-12. Can I make up a rating right now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So I
not quite 13.
Not quite 13. PG-12. it's a great movie. It won Best Picture in 1950. It's a really fun story about the theater. And if you've never seen it, and I would say if you're over the age of 12, that's me judging it, but it's a pretty old movie, so it's pretty good for a family view.
Mhm.
And it's just a great story about a backstage story of the theater, and who doesn't love that? So that's kind of where the musical Applause got its start, and it was turned into a musical and premiered on Broadway in 1970. And it went through kind of a crazy process, which you can read about online, coming from film to stage, involving such greats as Betty Comden and Adolph Green, who were part of it, Lee Adams, the lyricist, Sidney Michaels, Joan Mankiewicz, Mary Orr. I mean, big names in movies and theater to get it to become a musical. And now to backtrack a little bit, I became friends with Charles Strauss, the composer, 15 years ago. He's been my very good friend and mentor for many years. And we've always talked about Applause because it never came back. Revivals are such a great thing on Broadway. We just had Oklahoma last season. What were the others last season that we had? We had so many.
Once that wasn't that season. But the Carolina Change is coming, and the West Side Story, and the
Company's coming.
Company. Thank you, Company. That will be in the fall, hopefully.
And Applause was such a great show, great score, great songs. I'm dancing and singing to the songs, and I said, why did the show never come back? And then Charles and I had many discussions, and what we're doing, what we've been given the opportunity to do, is restore the show to a little more of what it was meant to be. It kind of got a little off track, and a little more of what it was meant to be, working with 5 different versions and many different songs that were cut. And I would say, again, going back to the story. And the story is at its heart about women in the entertainment industry, and about how careers are made, how careers are built, struggles that women have especially. It's a story of women in the theater. And in movies. And so we've been able to re-put that together, and we have been honored to be asked by NYU, the Steinhardt School of Vocal Performance for Musical Theater, to produce it with their undergraduate and graduate students in the fall. And who knows, we may be one of the first theaters that gets allowed to reopen up, because we're under 500 seats. So I'm hoping we may, who knows, we may open up before the Great White Way. I don't know. It could happen. Yeah. I could be the only show in town. I don't know. But we'll see. But it's an exciting process, and we are currently digitally auditioning the students.
And what's that like? What have they been sending you?
You know, it's wild. I'm so glad I get to talk about this with you, because I think a lot of people, I know the Camp Broadway campers, many of them very well. I was a Camp Broadway camper. And I had
there you go.
But it's so interesting. It's the first time that I've ever auditioned over a medium of Zoom and submissions. I've seen many submissions of videos, but then normally you get to see someone in person. But I will never in person see the cast until the first day of rehearsal in the fall. So it's a really exciting, dynamic process. There was a dance call on Zoom last night, which was really neat. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And I think so far the students are presenting fantastic material. They really are.
Do you have any tips for our young aspiring actors that have to send in videos? What are some things you've noticed where, like, ooh, don't do that on camera, or don't have this in this, or anything?
You know, actually, NYU sent the director's team, myself, the music director, the choreographer, the associate director, to a tutorial, which was fascinating, for university teachers in theater to understand how to use this medium and most effectively. And I'll tell you the very first one that just happened to us and the wonderful team at Streamable and at Camp Broadway before we started this was I thought that my camera angle, I was in the room back there, and I thought my camera looked great. And they were like, it looks really dark and spooky behind you. And I was like, no, it looks great. It looks fantastic. And they, and then I walked in here and they were like, much better. And that is a prime example of the number one thing they taught us on this big university learning seminar from all the universities was before you do a Zoom audition or even a pre-tape that you're going to upload or send in, bounce it off someone else who isn't just looking at the camera feedback in the same room. Like I can't bring Amber from downstairs up here.
Right.
I need to connect with you and Streamable and Camp Broadway and say, how does this look from where you are?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that test is important. And actually we're doing one, we're having all the students do it with us. We're saying, hey, the day before you're all going to audition, we're just going to jump on and say, you look great. You don't look great. You look great. Or we can hear you.
Right.
We can hear you. So I think that testing it with a friend, I would say is the first part. And the second part is very simple, is again, be yourself. Don't let anybody else, influence what you're doing, because the people, and this is true in a live audition, the people who perform themselves most fully and truthfully are the most interesting to watch. And like you, Anna, who've been in 2 or 3 pieces that we've done together, at least two readings recently. And I think in both cases, you were definitely not the perfect cutout of what a casting director would write and say, this is who should play this character. Mm-hmm. But I tell you all the time, you're just so truthfully Anna that you're interesting to watch. So that's why I always say, yeah, let's put Anna in. It doesn't matter if she fits the part like a glove. She's just so great to watch that she's definitely going to enhance the show.
It's very sweet of you. Thank you. I didn't ask him to say that. Just a couple more questions here, and then I'll let you go. What's some advice you could give some of our aspiring directors or producers within their high school careers? What are things that they can do, or classes they could take, or anything to help them on their career?
Make your own work. Make your own work. You need work? Make your own work. Get a friend, make a play. Make your own work. Find that the work is very rarely going to come to you. You've got to go out and you've got to say, we're going to make a play. Let's do it. And that's my recommendation for both producers and directors.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And do you have some suggestions of favorite directors or producers within theater or film, or people that you look up to that inspire you?
Sure. I will say that I'm frequently inspired when working on a revival by Molly Smith at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. And she always says, there's absolutely no reason to do a revival unless you find something new to say. And I think especially for student performers, let's just say you're doing a production of 42nd Street, right? So it might not be the Broadway revival, but it's certainly your school's revival of that show. I would not listen to the album and try to perform exactly like some other recording of some other Peggy Sawyer. You've got to embody that for you and say something new. So that would be for an actor, for director, for producer. When you're doing a revival, Molly Smith says, say something new.
I like that. That's fantastic. And last but not least, Camp Broadway, as you know, our motto is develop your character. So what does character mean to you?
Character means to me, I believe the character is one's ability to fully embrace themselves and then give that away to somebody else. And I think if you have enough of that, if you have enough of that sense of who you are as a person, then you have so much of it, then you can give it away. Like you, Anna. I'll go back to you again because I like you. You are so fully Anna that when you give it away in your performance, it comes alive so much. So I think that knowledge of self and who you are and being able to then perform yourself through a character is the best way to develop your character.
Love it. Love it. Where can people follow you, find you, to keep aware of all the fantastic projects you do?
Sure. My website is easy and it's great. ericpaulvitale.com.
I'm going to put it in the chat.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yep. Great.
Is where you can find all kinds of stuff about me.
Wonderful. And make sure to follow all of Camp Broadway on all of our social media, our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of that fun stuff. Thank you, Eric, for spending your time with us today. Join us next week, same time, 1:30 on Thursday. We will have Sherry Sanders. Sherry is the creator of the rock musical Revolution, Rock the Audition. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. It's very cool. And we'll see you next Thursday. Thank you, Eric. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.